Okay, we are here, or I'm here, and I see that several of y'all are here too. So thank y'all very much. I'm trying to run this over. Okay, good. I've got the list here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. If you need to, if somebody can just quickly go into the chat, and make sure that they're hearing the audio for this. We are recording this, and this session will be available. And I see, yes, you all can hear. Great. Thank you all for tuning in, and welcome to our second week of Q&A, the final session that we are going to do on Tuesday night after this week. The sessions will all be on Monday nights at 8 p.m. That was the original plan. There were some issues that came up that forced us to have these sessions for the first 2 weeks on Tuesday nights. I realize that there are several students who are currently in class or have other commitments that are not able to attend. The other thing also remember is that this is a completely optional session. I'm not grading anybody with respect to their participation in their Q&As, and I don't really get to see if you watch them or not. I mean, I can see who's participating here, but I don't really get a chance to see whether or not your participants have a chance to have used it. So this is for your benefit, and that hopefully it helps with the assignments as well, as well as the exams that we're going to have later on at the midterm level and at the final level. But it's not intended to be seen as being mandatory. And I realize that as I'm getting back to being involved in an academic environment for the first time in quite a while, it's a little bit of a learning curve for me, and I appreciate everybody's patience and hope that y'all did have some chance this week to work with to do the reading. And what I want to do real quick, so that I kind of have some understanding with respect to this, is I want to run a poll real quick. I'm going to open this up so y'all will have the chance to participate in this poll. It'll also give me a chance to see how intuitive it is to use the inning meeting system. And it's a pretty simple poll, and you can see there. I'm going to leave it open for probably about a minute or so. Basically, how far you've gone along with the book reading. Over the next 2 weeks, you have the opportunity. We're going to be going over, and the lectures that should be available either tomorrow night or Thursday morning. You'll have the lecture will focus a lot on the information in these 4 chapters. I will tell you right now, the lecture will be cut up into parts, probably about 15 minutes each, and we will, or I will, in the course of the lecture, do that. And I can see that there are a few that haven't, and some who have. That's kind of what I wanted. That's kind of what I expected. Everybody's being honest, and I see that not everybody's read everything, which is fine. Kind of looking to see what people would do with chapters 1 and 2 this week, and then obviously next week. We'll finish up with chapters 4 and 5. There's also the other pieces of reading that we have, the online pieces, as well as the video that I see that one of our people in the discussion board this afternoon posted on. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and stop at this point. See overall, again, kind of what I expected. Most of y'all have done some reading. Make sure you do get a copy of the book. Again, so far, everything got it, and I can see some people are just now getting it from Amazon. Okay, none of the bookstores in Greenville have the book. Yeah, I apologize for that. So again, it looks like y'all just go ahead and order it online for now, and we will do what we can. This session should be done about 9 o'clock, if not earlier. My goal is to basically be here to answer questions, and so to facilitate that, I have set it up to where the meeting is set up in what they call Q&A mode, so I can open up the microphones, everybody's microphone, and looking at options to try to see how to do this the best way. But basically, I can open up everybody, and if you want to call in, trying to look at what I can do here. Some of you might have to work with your browser permissions. But if you can't talk, you can type in your question using the chat feature, and we will enable it. But again, right now, trying to see what I can do in terms of opening up the microphones. If you want to, though, you have the power, if you can, to unmute yourself so that you can talk if you have a question. So yeah, using the chat is perfectly fine. Don't worry about that. And then also want to talk a little bit about the assignments, talk about 2 of the assignments, but I'll wait on that for right now. So what I want to first do is answer any questions people have with respect to the syllabus or with respect to the first 2 chapters of the book, and then we'll talk a little bit about the assignment. So I'll go ahead and start. Y'all go ahead. Remember, if you want to use voice, you can unmute yourself. Okay, yes, with regard to county scan data, will there be some instruction on how this should be used? Absolutely. In fact, that's going to be the 4 assignments. And actually, the first 2 of those assignments for using the county data are already up on your board. So what I want to do real quick is I'm going to swatch over, and you're going to see you should see at this point, you should see my Blackboard page. You should be able to see that right now. And what I am going to do is I am going to go to course documents, and you will see that there is now a folder for assignments. If you were to click on that, you would see that there are the 4 assignments. I have loaded the first 2. I had to go in there and do a lot more editing to them than I originally thought. These assignments were developed based with the book and based with the work that Dr. Smirnova did, and a lot of them, the links had changed and some of the services had changed in terms of the data itself. So what we'll need to do, when I go over in a second, these assignments basically are reflective of how you're going to obtain data and then how you're going to use it. The first half of the semester, you're going to be working on obtaining data and trying to draw some general conclusions from the data itself. In the second half of the semester, when we start looking at some analysis methods, the input-output and some of the other analysis methods, is when you're going to start taking that data and actually applying it. So it's really a course where you're going to be going through kind of a process, and that's why the county selection is important. I don't know why I did that. Why the county selection is so important. So just to go ahead, and as you can also see here, there's an assignment up here called reading assignments, and this is, of course, one of the items listed in your syllabus that affects your grade. This one is a little different in that it's kind of an ongoing assignment, and I will talk about that last. So let's look at the regional scan assignment. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. And I'm not going to read it verbatim, but you can see there the objective is a regional scan is really about getting a lay of the land. I would say that. And the book talks a little bit about this, particularly the regional economics article that you read online talks a lot about this. Really trying to understand where it is you are. Especially when you are someone like, say, Joe Max Higgins. When you see somebody, when you think about somebody like Joe Max Higgins, who was brought in from another part of the country, he was brought in from Arkansas to become the economic development director for the Golden Triangle area of Mississippi. When he went in there, the first thing he had to figure out was, okay, what do I got here? And that was where he figured out what the resources were and then started putting together a plan based on what the strengths are. So that's kind of how he approached it. So this scan is important. And as you can see, the scan is not, for the purpose of this report, the scan, this initial part of the scan, this first kind of 2 to 3 pages, is not very long. Scans can get incredibly long. They can get 40 pages, 50 pages. They can have a lot of data. You're not trying to get down to that level. Because as you can see, it's really, this assignment kind of explains what you're doing. And a lot of this is not data as much as it's qualities. And again, it goes back that, and some of you've probably done this before, where you've been involved in a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And there will be an opportunity we'll get a chance to work with that in the second half of the semester. You have the opportunity to work on this. Someone asked about links being referenced. Do I want the links referenced? Can you explain? I'm assuming like in the research reports, if you want to show references, I would prefer that. I would prefer to see that, and I would prefer to see it at the end. I don't like footnoting. My preference, based on my experience, is to put it at the end. But don't feel like you have to. You don't have to footnote or endnote it. Just simply list your references at the end. You don't need to footnote or endnote the report. Just simply list the references. The first items you're looking at are physical environment and transportation systems. These are important, and particularly when you think about manufacturing or even tourism or a lot of different industries, these are kind of the keys, because a lot of this is tied to things that either you already have or don't have, or are in a lot of ways natural advantages. You can think about what are the natural advantages for a lot of areas of eastern North Carolina in terms of physical environment. And the reality is you have close proximity to the Atlantic. You have close proximity to Interstate 95 from a transportation side that's man-made. The ocean, of course, is natural. You have a couple of ports in North Carolina. And then with I-95, you are in close proximity to 2 significant deep water ports in Richmond and Charleston. So there is some, you also, of course, see some other things. And some of these, again, are natural and some of them are not. And it's even so looking at, if we've got these resources, how much are they being used? You look at system capacity and utilization, which should be on a separate line. The way it is a little off. The idea being, if you have an interstate, is it being fully used, or does it have the ability to handle more traffic? The same would be true with water treatment systems. What's your capacity of water production for potable water production compared to the current usage? If you've got, say, 50% unused capacity, that's great, because that's a service that's already there that for a large water customer they would love to have. Looking then at economic infrastructure, whether, again, and I will tell you this, I added one here actually about internet service, because that's becoming a bigger and bigger deal. And when you're looking at your counties, that's something I do want you to look at, is to the best of your ability. And if you run into some challenges, tell me, because it might be something that we just need to have a conversation about how you do it. But because you will have 2 sessions between now and when this is due. This is due on February 1st. You will have 2 Q&A sessions before this is due, plus you'll have time to work on it, discussions. I will create, tonight, I'll create a question group for the reading, and I'll also, for the book reading, and I'll also create one for this assignment to kind of ask some questions. If you find, like, for example, getting information about water, sewer, electric, and natural gas is pretty easy, but when you're getting about internet service, that can be a little bit of a challenge. But those are things to know about, and also finding out about capacity. Just because people have internet doesn't mean that they necessarily have the best internet, or they have the kind of internet they need for certain kinds of business or economic opportunities. There's, of course, some debate going on that some of y'all have probably read about here in Eastern North Carolina, because there were efforts by some jurisdictions, most notably Wilson, to provide broadband as a public utility, as a municipal-owned utility service, broadband along with cable and phone. The legislature put the kibosh on that a couple of years ago. Wilson, however, has continued and now gotten some legislative support. It's not formal yet, but they've gotten some legislative support to be able to connect Pine Tops in southern Edgecombe County, which is a very rural area with limited limited internet resources, to connect them to their network so that residents there and businesses there have the opportunity for true high-speed internet service. That's a big deal, particularly in a lot of parts of the state that are simply not well connected to the internet. And there's a lot of them here in Eastern North Carolina. Development capacity, and I'll be honest, a lot of this information, a lot of those sites there is how you're going to find out information about the other parts. Who's the Chamber of Commerce, who are the major employers, are there trade associations, do they have partnerships? Like, for example, Nash and Edgecombe counties have the Carolina Gateways Partnership, which serves as a quasi-governmental group that involves the city of Rocky Mount, the two county governments, as well as the towns, that we use that entity to handle our industrial economic development. The Chamber of Commerce here in Rocky Mount is involved in retail economic development. So that would be some examples. Also looking at other assets. Higher education is probably one of the more significant ones. I will tell you that I noticed how in the 60 Minutes piece, they did not talk a lot about how important Mississippi State University is to that area. Mississippi State is actually home to one of the larger and more significant manufacturing engineering programs in the country. I believe I know somebody personally who graduated there with a PhD in the subject and teaches at another institution. And that university being in that area and being really a very significant resource for manufacturers to have their type of engineers to work with them on developing processes and improving efficiencies is very important, as was the community college that they spent more time talking about. The community colleges there are obviously there as skill development for the workers, but universities can also play a role with respect to research, developing management, and other capacities. And then also workforce training initiatives. And in North Carolina, you want to look at how the employment department does that. There's the way that North Carolina has it is that there is a regional approach with the workforce with the training centers that they operate. Again, there's a map at the bottom, and you can look up online and find maps as well. But that would probably be to show. You can also choose, if you wanted to show a map of, say, with interstates showing in it. You will find on a lot of websites that if you were to look, they probably have a map already there that they've drawn that's not to scale. It's not important about it being to scale. It's more about reflecting the location. And I would say, like, let me just, for example, I want to look and show you an example. I'm going to go to the Carolina's Gateway Partnership page. And I want to see, like, for example, this is their business map. But there's something, and that just kind of shows where existing businesses are. And I realize there might be a little bit of a delay in what you're watching. So I want to go back. I was trying to see if I could find a map. This video, they have a video up here that shows it, but they don't. Yeah, this is kind of an example here. That for us, showing this would be from the standpoint of showing logistics. And we use it in Rocky Mount to show proximities to various ports and also for international transport, particularly because of the fact that there are more manufacturing exporters than you would imagine in Eastern North Carolina. And you can see it's showing how basically we are within a pretty reasonable distance from several ports. You've got the two North Carolina ports at Morehead City and Wilmington, and then you've got the two East Coast deep water ports, the two mid-Atlantic ones of Norfolk, Hampton Roads, and Charleston. Those, of course, are pretty significant in their own right, and it gives you an idea. That's an example of the kind of map that you would use. That's a little more specific, but again, this map would probably also show Rocky Mount's proximity to I-95 and US 64 as well. When it comes to your county question being asked, what if we don't find all the information that we want? You have to do the best you can. And what it really then becomes is, if you want to share and say, hey, I've got this, where do I go from here? Then I think it's gonna be about thinking about where you can go. So let me actually talk a little bit about that. I'm gonna go back. I wanna go ahead and stop the sharing. I want to talk about that a little bit. One document that is probably very good for you to look at for this information, and I have a city copy right now, but county copies are good, is something that you can find online. Most county governments should have it online, and it's this. This is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And there's a lot of financial information there about county governments. Basically, our audit findings. It's our annual financial statements. Municipalities and county governments have them. School districts have them, and they are prepared at the end of every fiscal year. And basically, they show conditions as of June 30th. But at the end of the document, there is a statistical section. The statistical section has in it a lot of this information. You also can find a lot of the information in what they call the management's discussion and analysis portion of it, because they are going to provide some information in there. There are some sections towards the front that have notes and narrative that are written in there, and they provide some additional information, and they serve. And the management's discussion and analysis is kind of the government's description of why are our finances the way they are. And sometimes, depending on how they're written, they are written in such a fashion that they provide a lot of that information. So if you were to say go to, like if someone was Pitt County, I believe Pitt was taken, someone was to go to Pitt County, they could go to Pitt County's website and find their most recent CAFR for fiscal year 2015. Or fiscal year 2016. They might have their 2016 up online. And it'd be a PDF, and you would find in the management discussion and analysis, you'd find a lot of information. But other things you would find, like towards the back, is the statistical section. And the statistical section has a lot of information in it as well. Like, for example, it will list the current list of the top principal employers. That is something that's important to have in this kind of scan. It will have some demographic character, some minor characteristics about like per capita income and some other things. Some of that stuff will go into more detail with future analysis projects. But when you're trying to do that kind of 50,000-foot view of what makes up the profile of, or the environment, the regional scan is also called an environmental scan, what makes up the environment, that information is also available in the in that document. Chamber of Commerce websites, county government. If you go to a county government website, if you were to Google it and try to find the economic development page or the planning page, there should be something. Something else to look for with your county is to see if they have something called if they have a document that they refer to as a CDES. And I'm going to bring one up here in just a second, a CEDS, a Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. These are very thick documents that are drawn up that normally, when they are put together, have some analysis built in them. In a lot of ways, what we are doing for this semester is kind of putting together a lot of parts of what usually makes up a CEDS. The one that I'm going to show you was developed just 2 years ago, and it's actually it is an update of one that Dr. Smirnova had used in the past, and that has to do with Catawba, the Catawba region, or the Hickory region. Hickory does a lot of good work in this area, and they have this report that they've done, and as you can see here, this report, this will be available as a document in the assignments. I'm going to put it in there as a document to have so that you can look at it as an example. If you typed in your county and typed in the phrase, if you Googled your county's name and comprehensive economic development strategy, you might find something. A lot of times these are developed on a regional level, so it might be developed by your corresponding council of government or your economic development region. If you go to the North Carolina Commerce website, what you will find actually is, if you went to ncommerce.com, what you might find there is that the way North Carolina kind of organizes itself is through a series of what they call prosperity zones. These were actually regions a while back, and they were reorganized during the last administration. A lot of things happen when governors change or when things happen. And for example, because of the reorganization, it actually took some areas of eastern North Carolina and it kind of put them into different sets. For example, Nash and Edgecombe and Wilson, that were part of NC East before, are now part of the North Central Prosperity Zone. Pitt is part of the Northeast Prosperity Zone. Then you go down and looking at places like Craven and Pamlico and Carteret, and of course down to New Hanover. They're in the Southeast. And you look at some that are in the Sandhills. I think somebody picked a county in the Sandhills, all the way down to, of course, looking at the other ones. But that reflects, and you can go to the NC Commerce website actually, and they might have some information. I'm going to use Cabarrus because that was not one of the counties listed. It has been moved, so we got to use what they say. Again, a lot of stuff has gone on, but they are pretty good. But like, for example, you go to this page, in some cases you'll have to go through it. We want you to do the research. You go to say, we say Cabarrus, which is not Catawba. That's Cabarrus is actually I'm blanking on it for a second, Concord. But you could run a report. It'll run a report, and there will be some information. Now, a lot of this is demographics, but there's also some other information in there that is a little more descriptive. But there, it even has a map for you, so you would have that map to be able to use. And again, this is at the Access. This is actually at the Access NC site. Access NC was developed. This is kind of a data site that was developed. A lot of information, and you have the community data page. If you go to community data, you can pull county profiles, region profiles, and other reports that are there that kind of serve as they kind of serve as kind of overview reports of data. It's a very good resource. The state has done some work the last couple of years to better develop how it gathers data and how it shows that data. You can see as well, they've got information on building sites. That's a good thing to have when you're trying to look at vacancies. There's like available site and location data. You would try and look and see. You can actually kind of put, like, for example, if we were going to look at for example, Onslow County would give us some information for sale or lease, buildings and sites, and we go down to there. and you can kind of see there may not be anything listed in there, but it also has information. It also says, we can show railway information, airport information, and some other things. So you have some resources. Actually, there it is. It's down below. They have 3 things that they've identified. So that's a way that you can pull information. So the state has done a really nice job of collecting this information at a state level that you can use at a county. And again, that is at Access NC. If you were just to Google it, that's probably the easiest way to do it. If you just Googled Access NC, you'll come to it. That might be the easiest way to do it, just to keep, instead of having to deal specifically with a given domain. Going to go back to here, see where we are. Yep, got it. Not all counties refer to their audits as CAFR. Absolutely. Some don't. Some county, and a lot of it also depends on complexity. Some counties are different than others in terms of how they do things and also the complexities of them. But in general, as part of fulfilling their requirements for reporting, they should have some of that information in those documents. Sometimes annual budgets do it. I put that information in the annual budget for Rocky Mount, but there's a lot more variety in how annual budgets are prepared, particularly at the municipal level and even at the county level. There's a little more, a lot less consistency than there is with financial reporting. So that's why I mentioned financial reporting. So there are some resources that you have, and at the end of the day, you should be able to get a lot of this information online. And again, North Carolina Department of Commerce is a good source for a lot of it, but also doing some web searching of the various groups and organizations out there that should be supporting it. Finding out, do they have a Chamber of Commerce, and does the Chamber of Commerce provide a lot of information? And one of the things you can also do, if there, for example, that you see that there's not a lot of information about business vacancies, kind of say there's not a lot of information. Now, what I will say is I do kind of expect that if you run into a roadblock with the county that you've picked in terms of not being able to get information, you need to make at least one phone call. You need to at least call. You can write in a report saying, after following up verbally with somebody, I was not able to find information. Tell them that you're doing it as part of a class. And just tell them that you're looking at, for example, to understand building sites for that given jurisdiction. And if they say, well, everything we got is listed at the state commerce site, you can say, thank you. Reality, of course, being it's not that much. That must indicate that they don't have that much available, or that they have a low vacancy rate. So there are some ways of looking at that. So that takes care of the regional scan assignment, which will be due on February 1st. Again, you have two more Q&A sessions between now and then. We obviously have other things to talk about in those Q&As, but there will be time during those Q&A sessions for you to come forward and say, hey, I need some more information about this or that. I'm running into this problem there. Those opportunities are there. Again, you can also use the discussion board for the assignment that will be available as soon as this Q&A is over. You can use that to pull some information or to ask some questions. And of course, obviously, all of y'all helping each other out is great. I want to go back, actually. I want to look real quick. Let's see here. Reading assignment. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll take care of that now. So I'm going to bring that up. You're going to look at my face for a second. And I'm going to bring this up for y'all to look at. So y'all have the reading assignment up now. And I hope people are able to see it. Can people see the reading assignment? Just make sure that they can see the screenshot. Yes, good. Okay. And the delay is very short. That's the other thing I wanted to see. So the reading assignment is also on there. And this is kind of more about developing good habits in terms of as you're doing work. And it applies not just, of course, to economic development, but it applies to your work as a local government or a public administration professional. There is an expectation that and it's a long-held expectation that as you're moving forward in your career and developing a professional a professional background, that you are taking the opportunity to develop your knowledge, that you're out there doing through a certain degree of self-discipline, doing what you can to study and read up on what's going on, that you're looking at projects, that there's certain topics that you're interested in. For me, I work in public finance. One of the things that I spend a lot of time looking at, and that I actually have done some research on for academic conferences, is the role of municipal-owned public utilities. Looking at it from a financial perspective, looking at it from a service perspective. How do having a city electric system and a city gas system and city water and sewer systems, how do they impact city governments other than just the fact that we provide the service and it's not provided by another entity? Looking at it from the financial impacts, leveraging service delivery of other services, and so on. And I do spend a good amount of time looking at that because it's very interesting to me. I grew up in Tennessee. Tennessee is predominantly a state where almost all, if you use electricity in Tennessee, you're using it through a municipal or local quasi-governmental co-op where they're buying the power from TVA. So that's kind of how it works. That's how it works statewide. And so coming here to Eastern North Carolina, one of the things that made it very comfortable for me was that I was coming to a city in Rocky Mount where they own their electric system, they own their gas system, their water and their sewer, much like it was for me growing up in Tennessee, as well as the other cities I've worked at. So that's just one example. So that topic interests me. And when it comes to economic development, hopefully you're thinking about, and I kind of alluded to this early on, you're thinking about how economic development influences you in terms of what is your role in what you do. How does it influence economic development? For those of you who are currently in professional service, all of you, and I know some of you were in education, some of you were in aspects of water treatment, some of you were in other aspects of engineering or other services. All of us play a role in that our service, how we do service, that works. So what you're looking at what we're looking at are for you to choose two articles. And hold on just one second. What we are looking for you to do is to pick two articles that are not on the syllabus that you can use, that allow you to, that you can read through and basically say, as it says in that second paragraph, you need to find a total of two articles not on the syllabus, one academic and one applied research. You are to provide a one-page executive summary of each article with a description of its strengths and weaknesses. In other words, you are doing this as a critical evaluation of two articles. One, again, is an academic paper prepared under, basically a peer-reviewed paper, and the second one is an article that is professional, but is of a little less, is not necessarily peer-reviewed. It was applied research. And what you're doing is you're reading through it and you're saying to yourself, okay, what are the strengths and weaknesses of this paper? What do they get right? Where is their argument weakest, and so on? And what you're looking at are topics related to the government's role in economic development. For example, a topic that is, and I'll be honest, I want it to be something that you're interested in. I want it, you have some depth. They do not have to necessarily be related to North Carolina. They can tie to things going on in other parts of the country. Like, for example, right now, there is a big argument, and this has been going on for a long time, there's a big argument about the role of professional sports as an economic development tool for major cities. There's a lot of stuff going on, particularly on the West Coast, where in the last 12 months, you have seen the St. Louis Rams move back to Los Angeles. They are currently playing in the LA Coliseum with their owner building a new stadium. And of course, the Chargers as well. where you have these teams that are moving around, and they're basically moving around because they're trying to get new facilities to play in, and they're trying to get the best deal from the standpoint of that, what is the best deal? There's also the fact that there's a lot of talk about corporate relocation. There was a story this morning in the Triangle Business Journal, which is a good place to look at to get ideas. Triangle Business Journal, you can find it online. It's based out of Raleigh, or you can go to the Charlotte Business Journal. They're the same company, just two different locations of the publication. They had an article about a Cary-based business that currently has about 15 employees. They are ready to now go into full expansion and hire 150 workers. So they presented their expansion plan. They went out and tried to get the best deal for this expansion. And this company, which has been based in Cary, was started in Cary, and has developed themselves into a place where they're permanent and is now talking expansion, has decided that while they're going to keep their presence in Cary, they're going to expand in Tampa, Florida. And the article talks about the incentive, about the role of the incentives. And they said, we really didn't get a lot of incentives from North Carolina. We got a good incentive package from Florida. Florida also does not have income tax, which that's a major factor as well, and kind of helps them. Now, that article itself, that Triangle Business Journal article, that would not be the article to talk about. But a good article would be to find one in either a research paper or, say, a magazine of like The Atlantic or The Economist or one of the Atlantic's websites. City Lab is a good source of articles that tie public policy to economic development, to kind of look at somebody who's actually done a little more research than isn't just looking at this one particular case, and looks at it and goes, does this really do these things really work? How are incentives working? What incentives are working? There are some other great resources as well. There are think tanks out there that do a lot of this research. Now, that is political. There aren't a lot of think tanks that are straight down the middle, not predisposed to one ideology or another. You got those on the left and those on the right. There's some good information, though, that they put together normally. Sometimes they miss the boat, but a lot of times they do have some good information in them, even if it becomes pretty clear that once they get to their conclusions that they're trying to pitch a political or a philosophical argument and are using the data more to justify their cause. Another great source is the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve districts. As you know, the Federal Reserve is comprised of a group of district banks, one of which is the Richmond district that North Carolina is located in. And they do a lot of research on economic development. They look at tax credits, they look at a lot of different programs, and they do research. So does the New York Fed, so does the St. Louis Fed. The Atlanta Fed has done a lot of research. So you can look at different strategies and different things that are going on through these various sites, and see that those are some good locations for some of those applied research reports. The academic ones, that one kind of ties back to using your library access and going to JSTOR or EBSCO and pulling up, searching, saying, I want to look at economic development, type in search, economic development sports stadiums or economic development tax incentives. Some of them get really, really technical. Don't worry about those. What you're looking for more of are situations where they're kind of looking at a general topic or a general idea, and they've done the research and they're saying, and they're asking, what's the impact of this? Is there a benefit? Are we really achieving a benefit? And in a lot of cases, looking at it, are we achieving any marginal benefit that's greater than not doing anything? That's always the question to ask with respect to public policy. Does doing something achieve more than necessarily doing nothing? Because that's not always the case. A lot of times you think you might be doing something, but the question really is, would we have achieved that and still by just doing nothing? Not always the case, but it does happen. And this does go on a little more. There are some examples of journals that are there. I agree with this. I would say 2007 onward, I would go 2010 onward. Now, when it says no newspaper or magazine articles are permitted, Again, that is for the academic article. So you can't use general journalism publications for that. You need to be peer review academic journals. Then of course you go, you've got some applied research that you can look at. These are one source, and I talked about this in the last Q&A. Those of you who are practitioners, who are members of practitioner associations, like for example, if you're in finance, Government Finance Review, where one of your articles came from, older article, has some, the Government Finance Review does have some good work looking at economic development practices. So does, if you're an ICMA member or you work in a jurisdiction where you've got a manager who's an ICMA manager, they get a magazine. And I'm looking, I got a recent copy of it, or at least I thought I did. But they've got a magazine called Public Management that regularly features articles on various economic development strategies. These articles can be 4, 6, 8 pages. ICMA produces also a lot of what they call IQ reports, or they had, and they kind of do an overview of a strategy. So those are good ones. Some of them will use a case study or multiple case studies, and but they're written from a more technical perspective, and there's been a lot more research done into them. But that doesn't mean that their findings are necessarily certain. A lot of times, for example, if somebody from a given jurisdiction writes about something that they've done, they're going to write about it in the best possible way. That's just the way things are. And so you got to ask yourself, you got to be critical and say, okay, how is this right or wrong? So you're required to do one of each, and then when you've done it, you will create a discussion board, with the first post being that one-page executive summary that's asked for in this assignment. So what you will do is create a total between now and April 21st. You will create a total of two discussion boards. You will create 2 discussion boards, one for each of your readings. So you'll create one discussion board for your academic article and one discussion board for your applied research. From there, we also, of course, are encouraging you to look at what other people are doing. So this is where the participation portion of your course comes into play. And you need to show that you are reading other people's work. Obviously, you're not going to, I don't expect y'all to read everyone's, because there are 26 students in this class, and I understand that. But to show that you're reading some of them, because I will be looking at the discussion boards. Now, the due date of April 21st is the due date on which you need to have posted your summary. The discussion period will continue through April 28th. So there'll be 7 additional days of discussion after you've posted it. But the discussion board and the executive summaries have to be done by April 28th. How many do we need to respond to? Yeah, I know that's a specific question answer. I am going to say that what I would like to see probably is that you have responded to, I'd say about a dozen, and that it kind of be half and half, or lean. And if it's going to lean more towards the academics. Don't just pick 12 of the applied articles. The executive summaries also need to include a link to the original source. That needs to be in there as well, because hopefully as part of your looking at it, you're reading, at least you're skimming it. You may want to look at the abstract, for example, of the paper. Don't expect you to read the whole thing. It doesn't hurt, but that's the case. Post in February, do we need to check response through April? Yeah, but think about it this way. If you do the reading now, you've done the reading, and the reading and the writing of that report are going to be far more time consuming than following up the discussion. So just because, oh, I got to follow this, you're actually doing a better management of your time to go ahead and do it sooner. Say, like, at least I would strongly say one, references an APA format. I'll cover that in a second. It would work better if you go, if you do it that way. APA format. I prefer APA. That's what I prefer. Like I said, again, EndNotes with that would be best. The link to the article, yes, go ahead and set up the articles. When you cite the article should be cited as APA. And I believe that y'all have probably received some instruction on the writing lab that should have that information. And if we need to, I'll send you the information for the OW. The one I use is the OWL at Purdue. They're kind of the gatekeepers of great information, but I also imagine that the OWL here does pretty good as well. Let's see here. So we've looked through that. You can contribute discussions by asking questions on methods, data, theories, and assumptions. Those are, you should be doing that. Again, this is about building your knowledge, because after, something could be tied into the final exam, not necessarily saying when, for example, when Taylor posted this article about this, the question would not be, when Taylor posted this question about this, what did you think? Because you may not have read Taylor's. But I could ask a question about, talk to me about one of the articles, about someone's article that was posted that you did learn about. Could ask something like that. So think about it from that perspective. I'm not going to waste your time. I think you benefit from developing a body of knowledge, but as part of this course. But I also realize that you probably would also prefer to see that it also applies back to how you are actually graded for this class. So we'll work that to some extent. So I'm going to close out of screen share again. So we are, I've done those two assignments, and so those are the two key things. Now, you should, of course, this week read chapters 4 and 5. If you have gotten your book, you need to read 1 and 2. My suggestion is that before our next Q&A session, that you have done your part to familiarize yourselves with chapters 1, 2, 4, and 5 in your text, in this text right here, that you've done your best to familiarize yourself with that text, that you have done the reading assignments that were part of the first class. I'm actually going to pull up the course schedule and take a look at it, and that you've done those things. And then as we go to the next week, when we look at regions and analysis, that there's not a chapter reading, there's no reading in your book, but there are several articles that are listed in your week 2, which is on page 2 of your course schedule. These articles are not very deep, and a lot of this should probably be pretty self-explanatory. But one of the things I want you to think about is you need, as part of your regional scan, for example, if your county is part of a metropolitan area, you need to describe how it's part of a metropolitan area or a micropolitan area, and you need to know about the difference between them. Most of the counties that are selected are part of metropolitan or micropolitan areas. Some aren't, but most are. That is something that you need to look at, and those standards and definitions are set up. There is also so that's good information to have, and it is probably something I would say, if I'm looking at those articles and kind of looking at that description, that might, this talking about region, about the regional approach to evaluate information and doing economic development, that's probably going to be a focus point in the midterm exam. because a lot of what we're going to talk about as we start looking at processing data, but also looking at those chapters in the text, we're going to spend there is a lot of a role that regionalism plays in economic development. It's a growing role, so we have to look at that, and so that will probably be a focal point in the midterm exam. There will be more that we'll look at in the second half of the semester, but there's a lot that we're going to do in the first half of the semester, as well as look at other factors. Hopefully, in the next couple of days, the second and third, the third and fourth assignments will be up. I will go over assignment 2 during the Q&A on January 30th. I will go over assignment 2 on January 30th. That I will do so that you have at least one Q&A session after I've gone over it in the Q&A before to ask any questions. Then, of course, and that's kind of the way that I will do these, because as you see, once you get to February 1st, it's then each week for all of February, there's going to be another part of this product that you're putting together, this assessment of the county that you've selected. Y'all picked some great counties, by the way, and it's going to work overall very well. And what's going to be great about it is looking at those counties. For a lot of you, if you happen to be looking at going into Eastern North Carolina or staying in Eastern North Carolina, that's going to give you a nice body of research, because when you see how, as I'm going through there, one of the things I'm doing is I'm going to have you do a lot more work with more present data. When Dr. Smirnova put it together originally, it was mostly working with just census data, decennial census data. There's another product the Census Bureau does called the American Community Survey, and they have pretty much, as of this month, finished up all their 2015 updates. And I think to myself, you know what? In today's world, a lot, particularly with the economic recession and with a lot of the changes that are going on in this climate, while those may not be exact census counts, they are surveys, there's sampling involved, there's margin for error. In general, that analysis is used heavily in economic development because it's more recent. It gives them an idea of how conditions are now as opposed to where they were 5 years ago. So it, to me, has value to say, let's look at these census numbers, but also let's look at where we are in 2015, because that's more relevant to where we are today. So next week, the theme will be regions and analysis. Again, there will be lectures for this week will be posted online either tomorrow night or Thursday morning, and there will be lectures. They're going to be available. This Q&A session should be up tonight because I'm familiar with this product, and it works pretty well in this regard. I want to look at the chat board real quick. Is our final exam take home, or is it in class? No, it will be something that you do on your time. Basically, you'll have about a 72-hour window to do it. From the time that I post it until then. Second article link under week 0 said page not found. I have seen some people who have mentioned that, and I've not had any problems with it. I'm going to try to pull it up. And it came up just fine. This might be what I may need to do. What I think I'm going to do with this one, because I know some people have had a problem with this one, is there is a printer-friendly version of it. And what I'm going to do right now with this one, because this has been mentioned multiple times, this is the How to Read the Economy, a primer, is it's only 4 pages. It doesn't take that much time. I am going to save it as a PDF. And I'm going in the document, and I'll go ahead and tell y'all, in Blackboard, in the documents, there will be a separate folder for readings and miscellaneous, and it'll be in that folder for y'all to have if you want it. And I'll mention that as well mention that as well, because obviously if this is an optional, I have to kind of follow up with some things. But I understand that free library the way I always do it is I put the author's last name first whenever I download stuff from the internet. So I'm going to, in fact, what I'm going to do is I've got one more poll, so I've got that. I got it to work and save it. Okay, so I'm gonna post it. Okay. I see. Okay. Out of state with borrowed internet. All right. We will post it and make it available. What I want to do now is one more poll. And as you can see, I've asked you to use something that is not a property of East Carolina University. I use any meeting for other events that I do when I do economic outlook presentations and other kinds of webinars that I do as part of my job. And I personally like it more. But some of you might like Saba, and Saba is the official product. So, but I do want your opinion. And remember, I can't tell who you are. So you could be fully honest and tell me, go back to using Saba, Ken. Don't, Mr. Hunter, or whatever you want to call me. Just don't call me Kenny. Y'all are more than welcome to do that. So I'm going to leave that up, and I'm going to take care of making this available on Blackboard real quick. And of course, the moment trying to do that, it starts slowing down. So I may have to, okay. So it's looking overall like people either like it a lot better or they give it at least a 3 on a 5. So it's either 3 to 5. So that tells me what I needed to know, which is good. And pretty much everybody participated. So that's not what I wanted to do. So that's what I wanted to know. And I appreciate that. I do appreciate information. So again, what's really good about this is that because this is proprietary, this is not on their system. One of the things I found out about Saba is Saba does not allow me to download videos, which is the first time that's ever happened with any type of product that I've used. In fact, in other jurisdictions, they can actually download them. They can do it at UNC Charlotte and some others. And they told me, they said that I can't download them because they don't want me and they said, we don't want you making the videos recordings public because then that kind of allows it for people to give it away for free. We'll do the polls about Super Bowl picks next week after the championships. There's no reason to do it yet. I was hoping Dallas would win, and they did in Vegas. So they didn't win, obviously, on the field, but Green Bay was 5.5. So same login next week. We'll see. Probably not. What I'm probably going to do, this layout here is the webinar layout. I use this one. I've used this one in the past occasionally, but this is a little more expensive. So what I'm probably going to do is switch over. I'm going to test what I'm going to do is test another layout that's less expensive and that may require me to change my login. If we want to talk to you about our reading assignment selection, can we email you? Absolutely. I will do my best to respond as quickly as I can. What I will tell you is this. If you try to reply to the bulk emails that I send out, it's not going to go through. When I send an email out to the group as a whole, I use the Blackboard. I use Blackboard. Blackboard allows me to send out group emails. When I send those, it should say in that email that it's not, that it can't read it, that it can't read, that do not reply to that email. Because what happens is that I don't see it. If you want to email me, you need to email me directly. Exactly. You need to email me directly. That's just something that happens. Don't worry about it. I do it a lot. It's a lot. it could be worse. You could be dealing with the old style old listservs, where if you reply to the listserv address, it's a reply all to all the members. So that can happen. So if you want to email me directly. The email address to use is my work email, and I'm just going to type it in here. Just and I think this is what I put in the syllabus. You'll see in the syllabus. So I put it in there. So the two things is, one, that's my work email address. I have that up all day. So I see that. It's on my phone. It's on my iPad. I have it all day. And I check it all day. Particularly right now because we're in budget and I get emails, budget season, and I get emails from staff and everything. PADM 6123 in the subject line tells me that it's related to class, and that kind of allows me to see that. That works best for me. I will tell you right now, do not send it to my pirate email address, because I am not really interested in trying to maintain 3 emails while I'm working. There's another email that I've used, kwhunter@gmail. You can send it to that as well, because I do leave it up. I do leave it up as well. But the one that I'm always checking, and it's also the one that pings in my office, as well as on my phone, is my work email address. And we run it through Outlook. We run it through we have Office 365 here, so it's on the cloud. It has full capacity. We don't have any issues with losing messages and quota issues. That's all I got for tonight. So I thank everybody for their time and for making the time for this. If there are any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them right now. What I'm gonna do is do the same thing I did last time and tell you that there's nothing else that I feel like I need to share. Y'all are free to, this is optional, so y'all could have gone anyway. But thank you all for your time and for your patience as well, as I'm trying to get through this. Technically, I'm not even technically, I had to fill out a bunch of paperwork. I'm technically not even an employee of ECU yet. So I have to take care of that too the next week. But do expect to see some new discussion boards tonight. Expect to see some lectures in the next 36 hours, and they will be loaded somewhere in the course documents area for you to view, and we'll see where we go from there. But thank you guys, and I will talk to you later. If you have any other questions, you can post them, or you're free to go. But thank you, and have a good week.